Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Late Night Coffee Talk. Right, this is the opportunity for us to take a little bit of a break and for me to answer some of your questions. And I want to thank you for being here. Remember, we're second and fourth Wednesday of every month now, not every week, not every other month, not once every 6 months, but the second and fourth Wednesday of every month. And so, very excited that we're going to be here. Look, I've already been working on this coffee a good bit. I'm going to make a good attempt at trying to balance the coffee and the talk. Unlike last time where it was a lot of talking, not a lot of coffee. And by the time I was done, I could spit cotton. My mouth was so dry. Anyway, look, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us for Late Night Coffee Talk tonight. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is the time where I take a break from what I'm doing, which is always working for Texas independence. But I take a break from whatever tasks, whatever projects I'm working on. I come fire up the camera and the microphone, and I take your questions and hopefully get you some answers. I take as many as I possibly can. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. I forgot to do that because I'm going to tell you, you can email your questions. Look right here at the bottom of the screen to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. Or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and chat is live. So if you have questions, drop your questions in chat. Kara's in there right now watching to see if you've got any questions, getting them added to the queue for me. Additionally, if you are watching this on Facebook, you can drop your questions in the comments. Be sure to, like and share over there. And then, of course, now, I guess for some weeks now, we've had the ability to get questions via Twitter. So if you are seeing this on X, I believe all you have to do is drop a comment on the original post. And if it's a question, it should show up over here. At least that's the theory. I haven't tested it, but people were submitting questions via X last week. So I think that's pretty awesome. All right. We got some excellent ones, right? We had a lot of them come in via email. And I tell you what, I may do this. Let me start. Let me start with email. I think that's going to make the most sense because these go all the way back to last 2 weeks ago, right? So I'm going to try to hit a few of these. Let's take a look real quick. Wow. Okay. This is this question is from Lisa. And Lisa asks, once TEXIT has taken place and Texas is its own country again, will Texas have a period of time in which Americans who wish to become citizens of Texas, will Texas establish a period of time in which these Americans can do so quickly without a lot of immigration type paperwork? Also, would having been born in Texas despite not living there help expedite citizenship? Lisa, this actually gets down to something that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, which is really about process. What you're asking about is sort of as after we vote and that process that comes after moving us toward independence. How is that going to shake down? And I actually touched on this a little bit last time we were together, but essentially the issues of citizenship will be up to us. It'll be up to the lawmakers here in Texas to make a determination what that looks like. And so there'll be a component that is decided by us as we move toward independence, about who gets to be a citizen, what constitutes citizenship. Those are things that we get to define as a self-governing independent nation. However, the other component of that is going to be really what happens in the negotiations with the federal government, right? There's a negotiation phase. And one of those negotiated issues will be the status of Texans who live in the United States and those who are citizens of the United States, those people who live in Texas, and what those rights and protections will be. So that will ultimately be up to the people of Texas via our elected representatives to work that through. So anyway, Lisa, thank you so much for that question. Let's get into it. Let's take one from the chat. See, we got some good ones over here. Okay, this is fun. Jackal Nerf, interesting name. Says Daniel, I want to read the TNM report on federal money to further the cause. I have requested it on the site multiple times and haven't received it, not in spam either. How can I access the report? This is what I would suggest. If you've gone to the page and you filled out the form to receive that report, that PDF, and for those of you who don't know, there is a report that the TNM has that we send if you request it, that details and really debunks this myth of Texas receiving more from the federal government than it gets, and it takes into account all of those funds, all in, and it essentially shows for a snapshot in time that average 103 to 160 billion dollar annual overpayment, and I can break down the nuances of that if you want to at some point, but it's in the report, and so that's what Jackal here is talking about. But essentially, if you're having an issue with anything related to the website, you can always go to support. You can go to support.tnm.me and fill out a support ticket. If you've submitted the form and and you're not getting your report, you can always communicate with us. If you have any issues whatsoever with your membership, with making donations, with things that maybe you're not sure if they're working or not on the website, just contact support. Regina and the team over there do a great job responding to all of those. If it's technical, then we kick it over to our tech folks. If it's a process thing or something related to your information, something not working, our member success team handles it. So just go over there and knock that out. We'll make sure you get that. Okay. But thank you for that question. Okay. Here's a fun one. If Texas does exit, don't you mean when, right? When Texas exits, what is expected to happen with federal congresspersons? We will no longer be a part of the United States. And so therefore, Texas will not have senators in the federal Congress or representatives in the federal Congress. We will be a nation state, a self-governing independent nation state, and will not be participating in that those shenanigans in Washington, D.C. So thank you for that question. Let's go back to email. You guys want to do one from email? Because you guys have sent a bunch. And a reminder, if you're just joining us, you can email them to coffeetalk@dtnm.org or drop them in chat or comments, and we shall see your questions. All right. I want to show this. This is not a surprise. No advanced notification of Coffee Talk on YouTube. Guys, I have a sneaking suspicion that we are getting put back into that make these guys shut up category, or as most people in the Western world call it, censored. We're being censored. That's another issue we'll have to contend with at some point, right? Okay, here's email. Michael asks, when Texas once again becomes its own country, how will federal lands be dealt with? Example, federal buildings, parks, lakes, military bases, and international waters limits. Michael, here's the bottom line. When Texas becomes independent, any of those things automatically revert back to Texas ownership. As a matter of fact, there was an article, I believe it was in Newsweek about 3 months ago, maybe 4, where it sounded to me like the reporter hit the panic button a little bit when they reached out to an expert, and one of the experts said, hey, that thing about NASA, when Texas becomes independent, Johnson Space Center belongs to Texas, right? And suddenly it debunked a whole bunch of people's crazy assertions. What are you going to do when we get rid of, all that nonsense? So I will tell you from a practical standpoint, what you're going to see is, and I mentioned this a moment ago, you're going to see those issues as part of the negotiated issues, right? Yes, it belongs to us. It will belong to us at the moment we decide it belongs to us, on independence, uh, upon independence. But that being said, you want that to be part of the negotiations, right? Because you have lands that were effectively leased to the federal government. You have federal reservations, is what they're called. People think when they hear reservations, they think Native Americans, and that's not necessarily the case. You can have these federal reservations where this land is reserved for the federal government. You have leased property, leased office buildings. I mean, you have all these sorts of things dealing with the federal presence. And so those become part of the negotiation, part of the discussion. In fact, the status of those becomes really a bargaining chip for for Texas when we're sitting down at the negotiating table. So each of those gets dealt with in different ways, whether it be federal buildings, parks, lakes, military bases, international water limits. I mean, each of those things is dealt with in very specific ways. There is no blanket single answer for all those, except to say that the state the state of ownership of those reverts to Texas upon the moment that Texas gains its independence. And from that, then you deal with all those other issues. So anyway, thank you for that question, Michael. Yes. All right, man, you guys are packing them in via email tonight. I mean, let me see if I can jump over here and grab one out of chat real quick. Okay, here's a good one. I live in a small community in Oklahoma, and we rely heavily on tourism, mostly from Texas. Would that still be possible if Texas, don't you mean when Texas exits? Yes. I mean, let's just get real about this. Texas leaves the Union, we don't disappear from the face of the earth. We will literally be located in exactly the same spot that we are right now. Okay. So what does that mean? That means we share a border with Oklahoma. And if you look around the world, people travel between self-governing independent nation states all the time, right? We won't need a ferry to get across, won't need an airline ticket, right? It's still right there. And so some people like to say, well, they'll just make it difficult for Texans to travel. Well, that's a two-way street, right? That's a two-way street. Those travel arrangements are agreed upon between two countries. For example, there's visa-free travel between the United States and the United Kingdom. Right now, you have 1 million legal border crossings every single solitary month between the United States and Mexico using nothing more than a border transit card. So, that's something that I talk about in the TEXIT book. So this idea somehow that, all travel ceases and that, we have this 900-foot wall all around Texas, or we just evaporate from the face of the earth. That is just the biggest misconception that is pushed by people that you can imagine. It's not the biggest, but it is one of the biggest. And really the Project Fear people do that. But in all reality, let's just get real about this. Oklahoma is effectively the largest county in Texas. So, I don't think there's ever going to be a problem with travel between Texas and Oklahoma. But thank you for the question. All right. Let's go back to email. Hey, before I do that, I want to take an opportunity. I was having my weekly stand-up meeting with our director of organizational development, David Brunig. And he was telling me about, I don't know, some of you may have seen the article that's posted on the TNM news site where, we're talking about kind of where we are with 30 counties in development right now. Many of you don't know, but since the first of the year, we've been going through a major reorganization with how we are operating out in the various cities and counties, right? Many of you know that we had 60 local groups throughout the state of Texas in various shapes, forms, and fashions and status of operation. And what we're doing is we're really consolidating those down into county-based groups. where you can actually wind up having lots of different meetings in lots of different cities, all within the same county. But we're going to be organizing using the county as the basic building block. And so through this process, we have essentially spun up our what used to be called the field organization almost from scratch. And in that process, we've been doing a lot of the conversion of the local groups over to counties, and we have been spinning up brand new counties. In fact, if you want to learn how you can participate, or you want to go say, hey, I'd like to be a part of organizing in my county, you can go to local.tnm.me, right? That's local, the word local.tnm.me. And find your county and go jam your hand in the air. So you want to be a part of it. But that being said, David was telling me about two of our leaders who have been working overtime in their local area, in their counties, to get their county organizations converted over and spun up and ready to go. And those are Tim Curtis up there in Denton County and Mike Jackson over there in Angelina County. And I just want to take the opportunity. It's not really answering a question. It's just it's me saying, congratulations, guys. You're doing a great job. Keep up the work. And guys, if you're out there and you're not sure what to do to get your hustle on, to go get this organizing done, go talk to Tim, go talk to Mike, and do like they do, and you'll get it worked out. So anyway, I want to take that out. Let's take one more. Here's a question from John. John says, Stacy raised an interesting question on X and may have already submitted this as a topic for Late Night Coffee Talk. Will Zuckerberg's admission of federal pressure to censor certain views have any impact on TNM versus Meta lawsuit? It will not. A little update on that is we actually wound up withdrawing the suit. And part of the reason that we had to withdraw the suit, I mean, I could wax for a long time on why that had to be done. But ultimately it boiled down to really two things. Okay. Number one was money, right? I mean, it's just, I'm not castigating anyone, but we're just not getting the contributions to the Defend TEXIT effort like we need to execute this sort of thing, right? We're having, as we move into the next legislative session, we're having to make some serious choices about where we're going to spend money and how we're raising money. And frankly, everyone is huffing fumes since the election, right? But contributions are an important factor in pretty much any campaign or project that we do. And so we haven't had the contributions. And this goes to the question that was asked, I think, a couple of weeks ago about, what about the petition lawsuit? Well, it's the same answer. It really boils down to our ability. I mean, lawyers cost money. They're not cheap, and good lawyers cost more money. Okay. You want a bad lawyer, they're a dime a dozen, right? But even they still charge serious amounts of money. Okay. So that was the first factor. It's a money thing. The second thing is, which really exacerbated the first thing, is the fact that the case was removed to San Francisco. The Meta was successful in getting the case moved to federal court and successful in getting the case moved out of a Texas federal court to a federal court in San Francisco, which, you think about the logic of this. We sued under a Texas law, and it was kicked to a court in San Francisco. So are we going to get any justice out there? Well, probably not. It's very doubtful that we would get any justice whatsoever on this issue in a federal court in San Francisco, California. And the blame for that, and I've made no bones about it, the blame for that is State Representative Briscoe Cain and State Senator Brian Hughes, who left a loophole in that law that they passed that ostensibly was to protect us against, social media censorship. They left a loophole that you could drive a Mack truck through that made it possible for Meta to move this to San Francisco, right? So we had to withdraw the suit. Now, granted, Briscoe did a great job in this last session going in and getting that hole patched. But the train had already left the station on ours. Eventually Facebook relented on the censorship of any of the TEXIT now links for people. And once they relented, whatever. But while the loophole was fixed, the problem was still there, that really there was no way for us to get justice. I mean, if we were going to burn that kind of cash, we could just go pile it up in the front yard here and just set it on fire, right? But that being said, to your question, John, here's what it boils down to. Zuckerberg's admission, and for those of you who don't know what happened, but he basically came out and issued a letter apologizing for censoring, basically following the federal government's direction to suppress, withdraw, or censor content related to the COVID lockdowns and the vaccinations and all that sort of thing. He basically was apologizing for relenting to federal government requests on the COVID issue. So this was not a blanket admission on his part that they were effectively tampering in the elections. I think ultimately the people that are going to get hit with that hammer are probably going to be Google. But that being said, there really was nothing in his letter that impacts any of the other things, the real deal censorship that's taking place on these social media platforms. Now, granted, the bombshell again should have been that his letter of admission effectively reinforced what we found out from the Twitter files sometime back, where the government, and not just the federal government, right, had a portal that they could go into and say, you need to censor these people. You need to stop them from saying things. You need to go put the kibosh on certain lines of thought and conversation. And our intention, our hope out of the TNM suit against Meta was to get an admission that they had blocked the links to the TEXIT Now site at the behest of a government agency. That would have been the ultimate, but again, we were stymied through a lot of factors, two of which that I covered, and the other I'll just keep to myself. But the point here is that it won't have any impact on us at all. Even if that suit were still in play, it would have no impact other than showing what we already knew to be true, which is social media companies are taking marching orders from government agencies to censor speech that they don't think other people should hear. And that's something that we already knew. So anyway, thank you for that, John. Oh, and funny thing, Stacy actually asked that question. Yeah, so look at that. I killed two birds with one answer. Okay, let's get back over here to the chat and see what we can come up with, see what we got over here. A few more. Mm-hmm. I'm certain that you guys have all read that, right? So, if/when the Republic of Texas is restored for those of us who are retired and are drawing Social Security and have Medicare, how will we not lose our Social Security benefits? It's how we're living now. Thanks. I have to ask, is somebody doing this to me on purpose? Right. All kidding aside, look, Margarita buddy, this may be your first time here asking this question. I assure you this is sort of an inside thing for us because this is the most asked question that we get. And literally I go absolutely anywhere to speak. And afterwards I do a Q&A, and invariably, I mean, there's been a few times where, more so lately, where I don't get the question, but invariably it's there. It is, in fact, the most asked question and the most answered question. And I'll tell you, one of the things, I'm not going to answer it here because I've answered it so many times. But what I will tell you is, if you go to texitnow.org, you will find the answer there, right? You will find a long dissertation not only on what happens with Social Security and federal pension benefit payments, but what Texas could do as a replacement strategy for it. There is also a video that's right here on our YouTube channel that I think is actually embedded in one of those answers at texitnow.org. I talk about it in the TEXIT book. I think that there may even be snippets of that question being answered from some of my speeches. So rather than go into the big long answer for the 9,000th time, what I am going to do is thank you for your question and tell you that the best place to go look for that is go to texitnow.org, and you will find the answer to that question. But thank you very much for that. Okay. Hey, let's do this. Thank you very much, Stephen. Look at this. Stephen says, heard contributions mentioned earlier are off recently, so here is some to use as you see fit. Sorry, been absent lately. Lots of issues with health and such. Text it, y'all. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your contribution tonight. It is very much appreciated. It is I want to tell you, it's one of those things where, a lot of people, it's almost kind of an out of sight, out of mind situation. A lot of folks don't understand, for us to do the work that we need to do, what the cost is just to maintain, like what it takes to maintain the digital presence, to have our technology stack that can handle, 500,000 plus people, just TNM Social itself as our own internal social network, to maintain our mobile app, to maintain the personnel, to be able to just maintain the tech stack, to deal with a leadership organization that's got well over 100 people that we have to manage on the day to day. This is a big operation. A lot of people think, well, this doesn't cost anything. I can't believe I'm not going to pay to support independence. Well, look, I've got every type of membership that we offer. I have a regular contribution to defendtexit.com, right? To the Legal Defense Fund. I have a monthly contribution there. I have a monthly regular contribution. I hold every membership type that we have. And when I need merch, I go buy merch from the TNM store. I don't go in here because, we don't stock a whole lot here, but I don't just go in and grab something off the shelf. I pay for it, right? Because everything helps. And, there are a lot of things that some of us do where, look, we don't contribute money. There are people that don't contribute money. They contribute their skill set, they contribute their time, and that's appreciated too. But when I hear people say, well, look, I'm behind you 100%. That's like, cool. I'm going to print that out. And the next time the server fees come due, I'm going to hand that to them and say, hey, they said this is acceptable for payment, right? It's just the way it is. For the longest time, I hated even talking about such things. But I can tell you, and any of those that attended the TEXIT Blueprint seminar that we did up in Greenville now have a much better perspective on what it's going to take to get this thing done, which reminds me, I was going to save this to the end, but I'm going to do this now. Many of you have requested another TEXIT Blueprint, right? We did great up there in Greenville. We had a lot of people there. A lot of folks that were there wanted to see another one. And we had one that dropped right in our lap. As a matter of fact, Mac Duncan and Mike Jackson got together and went ahead and got one planned. So coming up September the 28th, that's a Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., I am going to be with the rest of the team in Lufkin, Texas, right? So we're going to be deep East Texas at the Fairview Baptist Church. Registration starts at 9 a.m. We're going to kick off at 10 a.m. And I really hope that the AC is working. I really do. Because there are a few things in this world that I despise more than having to walk back and forth for hours and hours wearing a suit in the heat. But, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? But anyway, you can get your tickets if you go to donate.tnm.me/blueprint. You can get your tickets and look, if you don't live near Lufkin, that's okay. Right. We had people drive all the way in from West Texas for the one in Greenville. But we're also going to be doing this in more cities. So if this is something that that you would like to see in your city, if you can't make it to Lufkin, then you got to reach out and you got to let us know that you'd like to see the TEXIT blueprint there. It's literally me spending a day going through the stages in the process of TEXIT, right? From building capacity to getting the vote, to winning the vote, to securing TEXIT at the end, to make sure that we secure our independence. So I do deep-ish dives on all those things. It's about an hour per part. Plus, there's room for your questions related to these things. And so I would encourage you, go to get tickets, go to donate.tnm.me/blueprint. And, I guarantee you, if you go through that, it will answer a lot of questions for you, or at least give you the framework and the context to understand some of the way that I answer these questions every time we're together on one of these coffee talks. Okay. Man, I can't thank you enough for that super chat there, Stephen, on YouTube. We really do appreciate that. Okay, here's a question. Bubba Man 217 says, will TEXIT make it on the ballot this November? If not, what is the goal and the next date for getting it on the ballot? Let me be very clear. There was no standard scenario where TEXIT would be on the ballot in November. And I think that is a major misconception that people had related to the petition campaign and what the petition campaign was. And so, it's something that I've talked about. I've answered a lot. I've tried to dispel that, but there was no scenario where it would be on the ballot this November, not in a standard batch of scenarios. I mean, you'd have to go into a weird situation where the governor called a special session of the Texas legislature. Texas legislature passed Texas Independence Referendum Act and changed the language of the bill to make that happen in November. That would be the way that it would take place. Okay. A lot of people think that the issue with the petition was that, we get it on the ballot, we get it on the primary ballot in March, and then it goes on the ballot in November. Well, that's not how it works, right? Those are effectively just resolutions. It was an attempt to give Texans an opportunity to vote on the question, to push the issue forward, to give people more of a sense of what the sentiment was of the people of Texas. It was to politically advance the Texas issue, so that you could tie the Texas issue in with some of the races that were on the ballot, right? Because we had pro-Texas vote candidates on the ballot to drive more support their way, right? Plus set the momentum so that moving into the next legislative session, that we had that vote to fall back on, right? The results of that vote, because we knew if it goes on a ballot, it wins, and it doesn't win by a little, it wins by a lot. So this is a civic education issue. There was no scenario except for that flea flicker that I just mentioned a moment ago, where it would have been on the ballot in November. That's not how this works. So what I would encourage everyone to do is, if you're a registered supporter right now, if you are not sure about how any of this legislative process works, or you're not really sure in detail, you got to do us all a favor. You got to go right now, go log into the TNM website. And if you go to TNM Social, right, social.tnm.me, you're going to see the TNM Academy. There's a whole bevy of courses and information there about the Texas legislative process. In fact, we even have downloadable PDFs on the TNM's research library of the entire process, explaining it from tip to tail. Okay. So understand, and this I think is actually going to answer one of the other questions that came in. Understand that your next opportunity to be able to do this, and I cannot stress this enough, your next opportunity to do this is going to be when the Texas legislature passes the Texas Independence Referendum Act. Now, some of you probably out there are like, well, that's just too far away. Well, tough cookie. The reason that we keep running into the situation is, number one, we're tied to the every 2-year legislative cycle. The legislature only meets every other year for 140 days. Some people think the legislature doesn't kick off until January of next year, but that's a load of baloney. They're talking about legislation for the next session right now. They're having interim hearings right now. There are electeds that are on the ballot in November that won their races in March in the primaries that are going to be on the ballot in November that are going to walk from that poll right into the Texas legislature. And those are the people we need to be working with. Those are the people that need to see the pressure. Those are the people that need to hear from you. Every single one of you. They all need to hear from you that this is your number one issue. And if this is your number 5 or 6 or 7 issue, understand that they will give it the amount of attention in proportion to the amount of attention you give it. Right? So if you come to them and you've got about 27 things in your basket of crap you would like for them to do, and this isn't your number one, then guess what? They will use any of those others as an excuse to say, well, look, I took care of 2 or 3 of your wah-wahs, and so you can take this one and take a hike. We're not going to be doing that, right? We're going to get the bill filed. That's going to happen. You've got Texas First pledge signers that won their races that are going to be walking into the Capitol next session. Our ledge team is already working on this. You guys should be contacting your representatives and senator right now. I mean, this is it. The battle has already started. If you're looking toward January for it to start, you're way behind. So super, super, super important that you hear me right now. That if you want your vote on TEXIT, your way to get that done is to get the Texas Independence Referendum Act filed and passed through the legislature. And if you want to do that, your electeds need to be hearing from you on that issue right now. Right now. That's how you get the vote. But hey, thank you for asking that question because it gave me an opportunity to get that off my chest. It's something that I've needed to get on here and say for quite some time, a reminder, because I'm seeing some complacency out there from some people. They're like, well, we've got the summer and things aren't getting real spicy until November. Wrong. Things are spicy now. Things are happening now. I'm taking a coffee break from working, not sitting on my butt eating bonbons, because there's work to be done right now. And look, if you think the opposition takes a vacation, you are sadly mistaken. The federal system is a machine that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And some people will say, well, they're government workers. They don't work much. No, but the machine that they support works 24/7, 365. And 24/7, 365, they are taking away your ability to govern yourself bit by bit by bit. If you think it stops, what I want you to do is go, when you think it's quitting time on the federal side, what I want you to do is go pull up the national debt clock and see if it stops. That thing doesn't stop. That thing keeps rolling. You think that illegal border crossings take a holiday because the federal government workers are going to take off on Labor Day, that all illegal border crossings are going to stop? No. Do you think they're plotting and scheming and they're working and all of those things that they do stop when those guys say, great? No. So you can't hope to defeat your opponent who works 24/7, 365 if you're only willing to give it from 7 to 9 every other week. It's not going to happen. Think about how many people there are. Now, look, we can take a small force. We can be very efficient with what we do. We take a small amount of resources, but get really efficient with them. You know, we don't have to be like them, throw money at every problem, throw a bunch of people at. We can be smart, we can be efficient, but we have to be, and we have to be all the time. We don't have the luxury. Not if we believe, as we say we believe, and that this is as urgent as many of you say that it is. Wait till you guys see hear the next podcast that's going to drop. I literally did one recorded it today. It'll be out in the next few days. Did one over the tipping point, right? You've heard us talk about that, but really focusing on the criteria and the tipping point theory of unshakable belief. If what I said tonight you found problematic, boy, wait till I tear into the unshakable belief thing. That's going to be a fun one for you. All right. Let's get down to it. Man, I've got a few more I got to do here. So let me get into these emails. This is what happens when you guys all soapbox me up. Okay. Let's go to emails. Okay. Chris asks, if I could fit just one note card, a 3x5 note card in my legislator's dress shirt pocket, what should I write on it? Who's your legislator? Because there's a lot of different answers there. I don't know that I have an answer for that, Chris. And not that I couldn't answer it. I think it depends on really who you're talking to. Look, this is not an issue that lends itself to a 3x5 note card. It's not. And part of the challenge here in dealing with these legislators is that a lot of our folks talk at them and not to them or with them. And I'm not saying that we should not have spines of steel, you know, and just have a bunch of gusto and passion and backbone, right? And stand up to them when they say things that are wrong, or be incensed when they don't listen to their constituents. But I firmly believe that a lot of objection to that some of these guys have to this issue could be overcome by having substantial, engaging conversations and relationship building with these guys. And, you know, you can hit them with all the paper in the world. You could hit them with a note card, or you could hit them with a mountain of paper. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got people in their district. They got to know that their voters support this and have to be very clear on what they want and why they want it. But you also have to create what is effectively a nexus with what their cares and concerns are. You've got to develop those relationships. And I know it's going to be tough for a lot of us, because we are not happy with how we're being represented. But we also have to remember that as much pressure as we put on them, some of these guys, to push forward this issue, and, you know, we are trying to appeal to their principles, that, you know, they're going to get push from the other side as well. And I can't remember who was it, Machiavelli, who said, never try to appeal to a man's better nature because he may not have one. Right. You know, you're going to have your arguments. I mean, I could literally do an entire day-long workshop on this aspect of it, but you know, you have not just the principled arguments, but you've got the practical arguments, and you've got to be able to merge those and put a mixture of those together in such a way that it can resonate, and you have that barrier softened by developing relationships. Look, I'm friends with some of these legislators that are reluctant. Just because we develop a relationship doesn't mean that they're going to just automatically do what we want them to do. But being able to have an ear, being able to have conversations with these guys, and, you know, over time has given us the ability, or at least me, the ability to help them understand where we're coming from. But it's also helped me understand the challenges they're facing in advancing our TEXIT legislation. And I can't get more into that without we'd be here for another couple of hours, because that's a whole other. I mean, like I said, I could do a whole workshop on that one, but I'm not going to. But thanks for that, Chris. All right, Mark says, "Dear Mr. Miller, I so wanted this past text petition to make it on the March 2024 ballot, as enough signatures were collected." I do agree. I agree with you, and thank you for that. Okay. Let's see here. Clint says, with the way the dollar is collapsing and the chaos with all the events of today happening, do you think a TEXIT will be forced faster than planned out? I guess what I'm saying is that, has this been discussed? Are we out of time for this to happen with the political blueprint that is set forward? No. So it's a good question, Clint. And this is something that people need to understand. So I gave a bit of a set of what needed to be done, right? When I talk about the TEXIT blueprint, I'm always going to give it in the standard timeline, right? Because that is a fixed thing that we know. It's something you can plan around. So legislature meets, passes Texas Independence Referendum Act. The session would end, say, May or June. You would have the vote based off that legislation the following November. Then it goes into that transitional process where they're lining out everything that has to be done, creating a big basket of legislation and constitutional amendments so that we can deal with constitutional issues, statutory issues, international covenants, treaties and agreements, and negotiated issues. Okay. So that would be what the standard timeline is. But I want you to understand, and everyone, not just you, Clint, but everyone, is that timeline, while the process is fixed, the timeline can be compressed as is necessary, right? So, let's just take this with the way the dollar is collapsing. Well, what happens if the dollar collapses? Well, the dollar goes into a collapse. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes, right? And then there are things that have to happen after that, right? There's all kinds of outcomes that happen after you have a currency collapse that lasts for some time. But what that would do is that would necessitate, say, the governor calling a special session that could be done almost immediately. Look, the governor can call a special session and say, we're having a special session in 3 days, or we're having a special session in 2 days. And this is what it's going to be about. And it has to be about that. And this is what we're going to do, right? So following that process is absolutely key. So while the timeline is flexible, the process is fixed. And as long as the elements of the process are there, which is a legally authorized vote of the people of Texas and the vote conducted, then how those things shake down after that are absolutely fluid as far as the time scale, right? It can be expanded or contracted as necessary. So, we have created this plan based off of watching independence unfold for decades around the world. This is one of the reasons that we have been out here shouting at the top of our lungs since 2005. We need to do this because there's going to be a day where we're going to look back and say, man, I wish we'd have done this 10 years earlier, right? What do they say? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now, okay? So a lot of our, I guess a lot of the passion in our voice has come from seeing how this has unfolded around the world, watching these same catastrophes, the same earmarks or whatever you want to call it, the same milestones of catastrophic events historically around the world happen here, right? Clear analogs, and saying, guys, we got to get this done, and we got to get it done now, because you want Texas to leave the Union from a position of strength, not standing on top of a pile of ashes because we stayed tethered to the Titanic too long, right? I mean, I've heard many people say it. The U.S. Constitution is not a suicide pact. The Union is not a suicide pact. And if you're watching these people intentionally drive the United States over a cliff, get out of the car. I mean, how hard is that? How hard is it to fathom that you're not going to steer the car away? They got the steering wheel locked. You know, right now, all you're determining is whether the car is going to go over the cliff in second gear or third gear, when you have an option to get out of the car and not go down with it. And so, you know, it's really, let me just say this. If you look at it in those terms, to wait until the car is over the cliff, falling down, to get out of the car then, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. When you have an opportunity to get out of the car now, that's smart. That's the adult thing to do. That's what grown folks do. So do that, right? So Clint, to your point here is we have a lot of flexibility, but, you know, I want Texas to do it now where we have time to go through a deliberate and conscious process to get this thing done. But understand, if something catastrophic happens or, you know, something crazy comes out of Washington, D.C., that process can be compressed down into a mere days or weeks. I mean, it can be. And that's the important part about it. And I think a lot of people don't understand. Now, when you compress it down that tight, what that means is you fail to do what you need to do ahead of time to prepare for this, right? Texas could have gotten out of the car instead of falling over the cliff. But, you know, what was the quote that I heard? If you're falling off a cliff, you might as well flap your arms. You got nothing to lose, right? I mean, you can compress down that time frame, but understand it's going to make things difficult. Suddenly, let me tell you, the Social Security question is not going to make any difference to anyone. Because they won't be asking us what's going to happen to my Social Security. They're going to be looking at Washington, D.C. and going, where is my Social Security that you promised me, that you've already said we're going to go bankrupt in 2030 or whatever year that is, right? It's just, you know, it changes the nature of the game, but the process and the key parts of the process are exactly the same. So that's just, it's something a lot of people don't think of. They don't think of it in the terms that, you know, you take a process and you can stretch it out or you can compress it down, but the process is still the process, right? This is absolutely no different. Okay, let me see if I can tackle a couple of quick ones over here. Boom. Okay, you know what? I think I got them all. Yeah, I think I got them all, right? These were good ones. You guys are in a real good competition with the folks from 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago was a bunch of bangers. And if you are just now stumbling on this and haven't watched the one from a couple of weeks ago, go do that because we had some really, really great questions. All right. Well, look, we're getting close to wrapping this thing up. So here's what I want to share with you. Number one, you know, the aforementioned legal defense issues, right? If you feel led to do something along those lines, head over to defendtexit.com. We really could use your support for that. And look, if that's not your forte, you want to help us reach out to more Texans, just look, head over right now, go to donate.tnm.me and pitch in. We definitely need your support. Look, if this is your first time coming across the TEXIT issue and coming across the TNM, but you want to learn more, you want to get involved, you want to join the movement to make Texas an independent nation, head over to tnm.me/vote. Pledge your support today. Look, become a registered supporter. Join the 622,000 plus of us that have already pledged support to say, look, I want to be a part of the solution. I want to win. And I believe that the future of Texas is non-negotiable, that we must be independent. Go pledge your support right now at tnm.me/vote. Actually, you know, I need to change that because you can do that straight from the main page at tnm.me, which is pretty doggone awesome. Excuse me. Also, Couple of reminders. If you have not already downloaded the TNM mobile app, do so, tnm.me/app. Once you become a registered supporter, you get access to our app. It's our own internal communication social network. Look, you guys saw that the CEO of Telegram got arrested in France the other day. This is yet again, we had questions tonight about censorship from Meta and Facebook. Look, it's all over. This is why we created our own internal organizing and communications app, right? So if you're not getting our emails, which many of you probably are not because they get chucked into spam folders by email service providers, this is your way to break the stranglehold of censorship. Go to tnm.me/app, download the mobile app now. And of course, if you don't do mobile apps and smartphones, like I know some of you don't, you can always access this same material on our website just by going and clicking, going over to social.tnm.me. But you have to be logged in. Okay. One final thing. We're running out of time, right? This is the 4th week and we're launching this bad boy in September. If you are a business owner and you support TEXIT, we're going to be launching the Texas Nationalist Movement Business Directory. You need to go over and register now. Head over to business.tnm.me and get your business registered. We got all kinds of businesses that have registered, and we're going to be going live with a directory of those because look, this is how we establish our economy. I want to do business with other TNM people. I want to do business with other Texas nationalists. That's what I want, and this is how we win. Rather than farming out to a bunch of people who are then going to turn around and donate their profits to institutions and organizations that work against our interests, I want to put it in the pocket. I want to put my money in the pockets of people who support the things that I support, that share my values. And that's where you're going to find these people in the TNM Business Directory. So business owners, get over there right now and register. We will be going live with this next month, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what that brings. I think there's a lot of you guys out there that have a lot of businesses, and I would prefer to do my business with you than do it with some of these other guys out there, right? New TNM News podcast on the horizon. I mentioned it earlier. You should see it in the next couple of days. Got another one on the heels of that. So we're getting back in the regular rotation now, not just with Coffee Talk, but with the Texas News podcast. And the launch of that TEXIT Insider members only podcast is coming. So be aware, be prepared. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you only have access to it if you're a member of the TNM. So if you haven't done that, go over to tnm.me/join right now and become a member because we need you. Okay, friends, that is a wrap for me tonight. Thank you so much. I'm enjoying being back in the groove for these coffee talks. I got to my second cup on this one, so there was definitely a better mix of coffee and talk, at least in my opinion. But before I sign off, look, I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate each and every one of you. So many of you out there, you send notes of encouragement. You guys, some of you probably heard me say literally 4 days ago was the anniversary of my line in the sand day, the day where I made the decision to work for Texas independence, August 24th, 1996. I know you get sick of hearing it, but 4 days ago, it was a big day for me. Right. And some of you reached out, you sent me notes of encouragement. And in these last 2-3 months, notes of encouragement have been like gold. Kara and I love to see every single one of them. It's not been the easiest time for us on a personal level at all. And I want to thank all of you who have reached out, and many of you who reached out on the 24th. You remembered it was a special day for me, and your words meant an awful lot. So thank you for that. Speaking of words, that means it is time to wrap up. And so I will leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Thank you guys so much.